Yes, very good.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for taking time out of your life to join us here tonight. This is the Port of Hueneme Oxnard Harbor District 2030 Strategic Plan Community Workshop. It's April 7th, 2021 today. And tonight, I'm Joshua Hurwitz with the firm Moffitt & Nickel. We've been hired to assist and facilitate the updating of the port's strategic plan for the coming 10 years. And tonight is an opportunity to let you know about the process to date, and then solicit your input and feedback in the development of that plan. So thank you for being here tonight. And I'm going to go over a few meeting details, housekeeping, and then we'll kick off the evening's webinar. Tonight, the webinar is being hosted on Zoom platform. There's a chat feature. If you can find it on your screen, there's a chat. It'll be open during the entire presentation for comments and questions. It's any language you wish, you can type your chat into it, and it'll be seen by all attendees and panelists. And feel free to type it in any language that is comfortable for you. For listening, there's an interpretation button in your screen, which will allow you to listen to the main channel or Spanish or Mixteco simultaneous translation. Again, this is an opportunity for the port to listen to you and hear your questions and comments and interests. And we ask for your patience because we have, this is a digital platform and there's simultaneous translation. So we want to go slow enough to make sure that everyone's voice can be heard. There will be a couple of sections in this evening's presentation where we specifically have some live polls pop up in your screen. You'll be able to select either a multiple choice answer or either or answer. Hit the submit button and we'll record your answers. And then there'll be other opportunities, again, we'll specify when, for you to put your chat or Q&A to make sure that your comments can be fully incorporated. This won't be the only opportunity to make your voice heard. You can send an email at any time to Donna Lacayo or Miguel Rodriguez with the Port of Hueneme, and they'll be happy to take your questions offline. And then because we are doing simultaneous translation, please do put your questions or comments in the Q&A or chat features so that we can read them and they can be available to everyone, regardless of language. And if we don't get time to get to your comment live tonight, don't worry. This is being recorded and there will be ample opportunity to incorporate it into the strategic planning process. We'll have a record of any chat or Q&A that you put into the meeting tonight. I'll go over the agenda and then I'll make an introduction. So again, this is meeting details. We'll cover the welcome and introduction. We'll give you an overview of the process of updating the strategic plan, what we've done so far and where we're going. The strategic plan has certain pillars. We're going to hear from the environmental pillar first tonight, actually, because of some logistics details. Then we'll hear the community pillar. And after each pillar, we'll have the opportunity to do polls and questions and comments. And then we'll close with the next steps for this process. So with that, I'd like to give a warm welcome to the Executive Director and CEO of the Port of Hueneme, Kristen Dekas.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. It's great to see such a strong turnout. Openness and transparency is in our DNA, and we really want to hear from as many folks as possible. We've actually been successful in getting 500 community services surveys out, and so we're really eager to hear more of what the community has on mind in terms of the port and the future over the next decade and investments and the pillars of our strategic plan. I thought I'd open with a statement from Abraham Lincoln that says, Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And I think that's where we are this evening, sharpening our axe and getting ready to roll out a fine plan that has the input of our great community here in Ventura County. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the president of our board, Commissioner Jason Hodge, to deliver some welcoming remarks.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. We have a fantastic turnout. That's one of the advantages of having Zoom, is that we get more people here than we would our normal meetings, so you can see how this process works and you can participate. On behalf of the port community, our staff, and our customers, we do want to thank you for being here. And we want to let you know that this is your port. And there's the old saying that a rising tide lifts all boats. And we believe that in this port, the better that we do, the better our community does. And we also realize that for a rising tide to lift every boat, you have to have a boat. And we want to make sure that everyone in this community is active in this port and everyone is feeling the benefit of it. So please make sure that your comments are in there. Make sure you understand that we are listening. This is one night of many conversations that we're going to have, but we're going to move forward together. We're going to build a really great future for this community through the Port of Hueneme. So thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. And so we just have a couple of quick slides before we get into the nuts and bolts of the strategic planning, but just want to make sure that the audience is familiar with the governance structure of our Oxnard Harbor District, which is the owner of the Port of Hueneme. And just to give a little background, we have 5 elected harbor commissioners whose mission is to run this port, your port, as Commissioner Hodge indicated, and they're really here to serve their constituents, the community, through the auspices of the commercial seaport here. And to become a harbor commissioner, you need to reside within this Oxnard Harbor District, which is our geopolitical boundary. And so to become a harbor commissioner, you need to live in the city of Oxnard, the city of Port Hueneme, or within the incorporated parts of Ventura County, the beach communities. So we have 5 harbor commissioners. They're elected at large, and then they serve 4 years, and the votes are every 2 years. So this year we will have a bi-year election, and then the next election we'll have 2 commissioners up for re-election. If you could jump to the next slide. And I think what the true value, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in this governance model, is that they are voted by you, the people, and they're here to serve you and make sure that we make the port a better place to fulfill our ultimate mission, which is not to become a rich port, but is a mission to enrich our community by creating economic and social good, by having access to the world stage for commerce, and then being able to deliver back to our community. So that's just a couple of opening remarks here so people understand how the port operates and who we are. And with that, I think it goes back to Donna to give a couple highlights on the business of the port, and then we'll roll into the strategic planning.
Thank you, Kristen, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for attending this evening. It's a great turnout, as Kristen mentioned and Commissioner Hodge mentioned. We're honored to have you here. And I'll go into a bit of a detail of how we did during the last year with COVID happening. We weren't really sure how the trend of fresh fruit cargo, which is our predominant cargo, over half of our tonnage here annually is fresh fruit and perishable cargo. And we didn't know how the cars are going to perform. And RoRo, or the automotive cargo that we see here, accounts for about 47% of our revenue. A lot of our customers at Origins had to shut down operations because of COVID concerns, and then they adjusted and reopened in a couple of months, but a lot of the volume was impacted throughout the months of May and June. So from the revenue standpoint, we saw about 30% of our revenue still continue to come through strong shipments of agricultural products, exports, meaning locally grown fresh produce overseas, and imports, mostly bananas and pineapples, avocados, and such. The fresh fruit segment continued to flow. Grocery stores were open, so we were fortunate to see that segment really grow at over 33% in the last year by volume. People continue to be able to purchase fruit, and the port stayed open 24/7. Although much of us were on lockdown, the port's longshore workers were able to be here to work the ship, so we're able to see that produce on the shelves for us to buy. Auto segment dropped, and that was expected. We actually anticipated a lot more of a drop, more like 28 to 30%. So it was positive that for last fiscal year, it was only 14%. The economic impact of the port being here is enormous. Jobs that are connected to the port, direct, indirect, and related, account for over 15,000 family sustaining jobs. The economy is also really benefiting from the port's location here. $1.7 billion of economic activity is accounting because of the port's operations of Ventura County. Annual cargo value has also grown over the past couple of years. It used to be 9 billion. Now we're up to 10.85 billion. And all of this is done on approximately 550 acres of port acreage and off-port acreage, or private businesses investing in our county and either leasing, purchasing land, and employing people there. We also own the short line rail. Genesee and Wyoming is operating it. It's the Ventura County Railway that connects to Oxnard Transit Center's location in Oxnard to Union Pacific. And we also have on-dock refrigeration facilities that account for about 170 square feet on terminal. And off-port footprint accounts for over 1,000 refrigerated plugs for containers that carry produce. Next slide, please, Josh. And why we do all of this, it's really because of the community and the people. The family sustaining jobs are really what drives this port to be successful. The port's success is your success. It's very important that we continue to stay competitive and vibrant, and we hear from you. So as we grow, we do it in a way that the community benefits. Next slide, please. Thank you, Josh.
Okay, great. Thank you, Donna. And that was Donna Lacayo, Chief Commercial Officer of the Port of Hueneme. And now we're going to have a brief discussion of the prior strategic plan, the 2020 plan. It was initiated in 2015. It was a 5-year plan, so it's expired already, and that's why we're here to update it. The prior plan had 5 pillars of emphasis: economic vitality, the environment, innovation and technology, community, and marketing. I'm not going to read all this slide, but in 5 years, it's difficult to achieve all your goals if you are ambitious enough in your vision. But it is interesting to note some of the things the port was able to achieve and some things that are a work in progress. Some of the major achievements include deepening of the channel, as well as some of the berths to 40 feet of water depth, which was tremendously helpful for the commercial competitiveness of the port. It did that in part by receiving over $30 million in federal and state grants between 2007 and 2020. It implemented a shore power electrical system so that vessels could plug into the electrical grid while at berth, thereby turning off their auxiliary diesel engines so that they didn't emit diesel particulate matter while stationed at berth. And they also, that alone helped to reduce diesel particulate emissions in part by up to 85%. They also introduced a system of air quality monitors throughout the city. So not just on the port, but off port as well. And it was, this is a pretty sophisticated system. I'll let the port describe it in greater detail, but it actually measures the actual emissions in the air as well as estimated. On the innovation side, they took a program, the MAST program, and incorporated it into an entity called FathomWorks, which is now operating at the port and is an incubator program that is a tenant of the port and provides startup and technology-based incubation for new technology, new ideas. working with the community, the port has held more than 48 food distribution programs, handing out more than 1 million pounds of fresh produce. And it's done some educational partnerships to promote jobs and educational training, for instance, the Global Trade and Logistics course. But of course, it wasn't able to do everything in 5 years. Not all of the berths were dredged. There's still some traffic patterns that need to be addressed and realigned. There's a number of remedial repairs to the infrastructure that were postponed that need to be addressed. There were some off-terminal real estate transactions that were not realized. And the port has made progress in becoming a more transparent community partner. But of course, that is a process, a continuum. And so there's still ways to go it's an ongoing process. And then the environmental goals are really, just kicking off in the last 5 to 10 years. Some projects have been realized, as I said, but there's still more to do. So that brings us to the 2030 plan. And we want to talk a little bit about the process to date. It kicked off really in January of 2020, so a year ago, with a port operators group meeting. It then followed with 12 months, so almost nearly a year of one-on-one interviews with a diverse selection of stakeholders and interested community members. There were more than 75 groups interviewed, actually, close to 100 participants, more than one participant per group. And those discussions totaled over 200 hours of interviews and discussions. And then most recently, the port held some online and community surveys last month in March with more than 500 respondents. So that brings us to this part of the process right here, which are the 2 workshops, tonight and tomorrow. Tonight's workshop is really focused on the community environmental pillars, and tomorrow we'll have a separate standalone workshop dedicated for the infrastructure pillar. The next steps will be to draft the strategic plan, fine tune it, which again will be a process, iterative process. There'll be a public hearing on the draft plan and followed by formal board approval. And we're anticipating that process will culminate during this fiscal year, the port's fiscal year, which ends June of 2021. Some of the themes we heard from those stakeholder outreach interviews and the one-on-one sessions were that the environment, the community, and transparency are top priorities. That economic vitality and the port's role in job creation was a top survey result. That social and environmental justice and equity are vital concepts, and that the process of community engagement is important, the process itself. There's a spectrum of engagement, and it requires conscious and collective practice to move along that spectrum. And there was a desire to have the port be an active participant and partner in
puerto sea esté participando en este proceso.
Committee domingo de milyo osa kung un cliente o kung participante ba ato name kase milyo
velocity to their final destinations. So given that feedback and the analysis, we're proposing to change 2 of those 5 pillars. So environment, economic vitality, and innovation and technology remain. Partnership is now expanded to cover social equity, community, and partners. And marketing, because of the success of the port, has evolved into a focus on the infrastructure, the actual infrastructure of the port on and off terminal, to ensure that what it offers to the marketplace and the participants and the operators and the users and the customers is an adequate infrastructure to meet their commercial demands. I'd now like to cover the environmental pillar now. Well, I'd like to introduce Giles Pettifor, the head of environment at the Port of Hueneme, to cover this slide. Giles?
All right, thank you very much, Josh. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this evening's presentation. I'm really excited to get to share what I'm going to in these next 2 slides with all of you. And I'm a little nervous, but I'm really excited about, sort of where we are. And as all of you are aware, the globe, the world, our nation, our society is at a very, very critical junction in our history right now. And that is in large part being driven by climate change. We are seeing impacts across the globe due to climate change, and that is largely being driven by carbon emissions that come from our world running off of fossil fuels. Our economy, our cities, our communities, in large part run on fossil fuels. It enables us to move goods, it enables us to travel, it enables us to heat our homes, drive our cars. But the reality is we are all recognizing that that is creating all of these consequences. And the important point here is that that awareness has become so critical and so pervasive that the recognition that things need to change has gotten to the highest levels. The Biden administration in DC is investing millions and billions in programs in the next set of years to directly address reducing emissions of carbon-based fuels, reducing CO2 emissions.
Emisiones de carbono, y reducir el CO2, reducir todas las emociones que vienen con estas
All
emisiones.
in the effort of
Nikisha sana sa hanji video basago na sa ham to ne kama ya kon ni na to na sama na ne kachon besa combustible ba fósil to ni to na chocando ni question ya to
globe is coming to this transition point of recognizing that we need to not only generate energy differently, but we need to use that energy differently. And the port is the place locally where we have this opportunity for this global push and this national push toward clean energy and the use of clean energy to do things like move cargo and provide jobs for people using that clean technology. We have that touching Ventura County through the port. And how that is important is because the community, those roots that have been there for 83 years, are going to be the receivers of the benefits from this transition. And this is what we are so excited about, is because, yes, this is a very frenetic time right now associated with, competing for grant money and changing out equipment and all of this transition that the whole world and the nation is trying to leap into right now. But we want to be, for the community, the pointy end of the spear that's pushing into this new world for all of us, to bring that into Ventura County, to bring those jobs, to bring that technology, that exposure to our students, our children, to see this technology in action, to make sure that it's not just happening in the Bay Area, it's not just happening in LA, but that Oxnard gets its fair share of that incentive money, that Oxnard gets its fair share of clean technology. We want to be that means through which that takes place. As an example of that, the slide you see here before you is talking about clean air. We understand and we hear from the community how critical clean air is. We all want our children to breathe clean air. We all want to ourselves breathe clean air. And we recognize that the port produces pollution as it moves cargo. The challenge becomes in that we can't necessarily say what the local air quality in Oxnard looks like consistently. There have never been high quality air quality monitors anywhere south of 101 in Oxnard. We recognized this fact at the port and said, how could we collect information about the actual air quality that people are breathing? And how would we share that information with the community about real air quality in South Oxnard? And our board and our directors and management were bold enough to say, we want to put in a very high quality set of air monitoring equipment down in South Oxnard, and let's get the real information. Let's not rely on models or estimates or guesstimates or assumptions. Let's actually measure the air that all of us are breathing. And so about 1.5 years ago, the port installed a set of what are called reference grade monitors. And it basically means that these are extremely expensive pieces of equipment. You know, they're hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what they do is that they take incredibly high accurate measurements of the air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And we're recording all of that information. We have about 14 months of data. And in the next few months and weeks, myself and Miguel are going to be going out to our community partners, our community groups, our local neighbors, and we're going to be sharing this information, this data. It's complicated because it's, you know, it's sciencey, it's atmospheric stuff, it's mixing layers and inversion and all these things, but we're going to be providing this information to the community in a way that can help the community to better understand what is the actual air that they're breathing and why does it tend to change the way it changes. Because what we're seeing is that the air in South Oxnard is really, really very good. And that it changes with climate, seasons, I should say. And that the true driving force for bad air quality, not just in Oxnard, but the whole state of California, and in fact, all of the Western US, is a new sort of paradigm, again, being driven by climate change, that is wildfire. And we're seeing concentrations of air pollutants 20 or even 100 times higher than the worst readings we get when there isn't a wildfire, in those times when there is a wildfire. So this is going to be a very important challenge, not just for us in the Oxnard area, but for the whole state of California. So stay tuned in the coming weeks through the traditional channels that the port shares information through. We will have information regarding this data, the presentations around the data, and myself and Miguel will be here to answer those questions and help to understand and interpret that information because it's so critical to us. So let's move on to the next slide. All right, so as we talked about, this excitement that I'm feeling, this transition, this change, it's going to touch on every single thing that's happening right now. And all of the things that are happening at the port, moving heavy things from point A to point B in very simple terms. That moving of heavy stuff takes a lot of energy. And if we're talking about moving away from fossil fuels, we're going to need not just new equipment, not just new cranes, not just new trucks, new trains, new tractors. We're going to need new fuel. And that fuel is a really important piece because that fuel is the new technology. Battery electric, hydrogen fuel cell. These are the new technologies that are going to begin, that are beginning to change our world, not just from Teslas driving on the freeway, but heavy duty trucks, class 8, class 7 trucks, things that big rigs move stuff hundreds of miles. This is going to be the place where those sorts of new types of technologies are tested. As you see on the slide before you, the port is already putting in place many elements of this transition. We have battery storage. We have zero emission heavy duty cargo handling equipment. The very first pieces of heavy duty cargo handling equipment ever to be implemented in Ventura County are coming to the port this month. We're putting in all the infrastructure, electric systems, transformers, switchgear, conduit, all these technical pieces that are going to enable us to power all of that future equipment. New cranes to move our cargo more quickly and more efficiently and more cleanly. All of this is going to combine as part of this whole new world that we're stepping into. And that microcosm that is moving a container from point A to point B at the port is the world in a nutshell when it comes to moving goods. And there's going to be opportunities for our longshoremen, our community partners, our schools, our students, our neighbors to benefit from this transition. And we want to bring all of you with us in this transition and share and connect with our schools, connect with our community colleges, connect with our trade schools and our technical students, and get them exposure to this new technology. You know, in 10 years, we're not going to need diesel mechanics anymore. Well, we might need a few, but largely the state of California is moving away from diesel very quickly. We are going to need electric vehicle mechanics that can work on a battery electric big rig truck. Those are the types of jobs, as an example, that are going to be changing, but there'll be many, many more, and we're really passionate about that. Now, there's a lot of detail to get into on this transition. And one of the things that we really want to get through in the next couple of months to year is working on all of this under a comprehensive clean air, climate action, and community plan. And that plan is called FRESH. You can see it in the upper right-hand corner where it says clean air there, with a PH. And that stands for Port of Hueneme, reducing emissions and supporting health. And this is going to be a comprehensive plan that talks about not just where we are, but where we want to go. How do we get there? How do we change what we do? How much will that cost? How long will that take? And what will that do as far as how we do things at the port? We want to get that right. We want to be very intentional about being really, really robust in that analysis, because we don't want to promise you something that we cannot deliver on. And so we are working, we're going to find out in the next few weeks if we are getting a grant from the state to help pay for some of the analysis that we're going to have to do in order to come up with those types of dates. You know, when can we get to a zero emission port? I don't yet have an answer to you on that for you, because I want to make sure that our homework is done and that I can show you all of the analysis needed to prove that this in fact is a date that we can get to, and it's going to cost this much money and take this much time. We want to be accurate about that, and we want to be intentional about that, but we want to show you and share with all of you that we are doing this every single day, that I am working on bringing and help facilitating clean air, clean equipment into the port community, and that our management, the commissioners, are fully behind us in this transition. We're going to Sacramento, we're going to DC, and we're going to be in pursuit of all of this, you know, new federal money that's coming down the pipeline. We want to also connect out into our community with our trucking partners, our warehousing partners, our community colleges, all of these, and work on all of that together. So it's going to be a long, you know, it's a process. It's going to be a shift. We have a lot of diesel equipment that still operates at the port. That is an essential part. We can't just change it over overnight because of obvious, you know, the expense, the changeover. But it has begun, and it's going to accelerate. And we want all of you to come with us as it does so. It's a very exciting time for us. And I look forward to answering questions and getting feedback as we go through this. So thank you very much. The only last piece I really wanted to touch on there, and that Miguel and others of our communities will get into, equity is going to be an essential piece of this, because as we go through this technology change and this energy change, what will happen with that will be an opportunity to change business as usual and to bring in new portions of the community, new communities that have not had exposure to these types of technology previously. And we're passionate about making sure that those connections happen and that those conversations happen and that we listen and hear and bring that to all partners in the community. So thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing more from all of you this evening.
Thank you, Giles. Let's move on. We have just a couple of poll questions, then we'll get into the environmentally focused comments, some great comments that we've seen in the chat. So Donna, why don't we go ahead and launch poll question 1.
I have.
Thank you. We see that. What do you think is the most important environmental focus? And you may pick more than once, multiple choice. A, air quality. B, noise control. C, traffic mitigation, trucks and cars. D, building more green infrastructure. E, climate change. Or F, environmental justice and equity. So we'll just take a brief moment to be able to record your selections, hit submit. When we have a good number of readings, we'll close the polls and have Donna click the button.
Yeah, let's allow for another half a minute so more people can vote. I'm seeing we're up to 56% of attendees have voted, so it's growing. Thank you so much for your participation. This is really good. Just another 10, 15 seconds. We're up to 71% having voted. I'd like to get as high as possible to get everybody's opinion on this, please. As soon as the polling is done, I will share the results with you so you can all see it. We're almost there. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the polling now and show you the results.
Okay, thank you. So 75% of you said the air quality was one of the most important environmental focuses. Climate change was next at 49%, followed closely by environmental equity and justice at 47%, and building more green infrastructure at 42%. Thank you very much. Let's close this poll and go to the next environmental question.
Yes, we have one more. Second. Here we go. I just started it. You should be able to see it now.
Great. So this question is about how to connect community to environmental priorities. And it's about how should the port involve the community in the port's environmental sustainability work. Question A, and apologies, I'll read it so that the translators can translate it into the respective languages. Establish a coalition of multiple stakeholders.
Establecer una coalición para varios
environmental health concerns. B, participate in more beach cleanup efforts. C, collaborate with groups working on establishing beach access and connectivity. D, collaborate with local agencies such as the Air Pollution Control District and nonprofit organizations to look for funding opportunities and continue open and transparent communication about the port's environmental initiatives. Please pick as many as you wish. Let's see.
Over half of the attendees have voted. We're close to 65% now. Thank you so much for participating in this. I will allow for a little more time so most of you can vote. And I'll share the results. Okay. I think we're there. Here we go.
Great. Okay. So, another tie. So really three items jump to the top. 69% would like to see a coalition of multiple stakeholders. 69% would also like to see greater collaboration with local agencies, such as nonprofits and Air Pollution Control District to go after state and federal grant funding. 66% also would like to continue to see open and transparent communications about the initiatives. And also working to establish beach cleanup and access efforts as well. So thank you. Great. So a good poll. I'm now going to read off a number of the environmental focused comments. And then we'll move on to Miguel Rodriguez to cover the community outreach section of the meeting. So thank you all. Some great comments in here. We have, let's see, I'm just going to scroll to the, again, I'm trying to organize it by environment. Thank you. So there was a comment about reducing emissions from 85 down by 85%. Can we commit to a zero emissions instead? So there's a desire to see a goal set for zero emissions. There was an acknowledgement that port personnel such as Giles are top-notch and dedicated. They're glad to see that. So I think for the strategic plan, we'll continue to emphasize, recruiting and retaining highly qualified individuals to work on these goals for you. There was an acknowledgement that air quality is a high priority, so please continue to emphasize that. There was a good question in the Q&A, which we can address offline. It was an observation that with the 14% reduction last year of car imports, why are we looking at expanding that? Because there's a premise that increasing storage will result in additional impacts, environmental and quality of life impacts. There's another great question here. Is the port doing anything to develop alternative electricity sources, undersea turbines, waves, solar, windmills, or other alternative energy systems? There was another question in particular about the air quality monitors. What are they tracking and how are they tracking pollution that might come from the port's operations, trains, ships, or other port business versus non-port sources? Again, an acknowledgement that the air quality monitor that was installed at the Haycox Elementary. So there's a question. So if those readings show that by and large the air quality is clean, why are there disparate health impacts for residents of South Oxnard? There's some good question and discussion in there, but clearly, the port's plan will need to recognize that there is an environmental justice issue in its backyard, and
Justicia de equidad de medio ambiente. Así que tenemos que tomar.
There's some questions about the particular percentage of port equipment that is zero emission or clean energy. So it's a great question there, and I think certainly pursuing electrification of the equipment that's currently diesel is both a regulatory mandate as well as a vision and goal from the port. And there was another question here about the CARB regulations. Certainly meeting or exceeding those CARB regulations for air quality is going to be an important component of what the port does over the coming 10 years. So the plan is going to have to incorporate that. There's a question about how could you expect to improve air quality when 400 or 500,000 diesel trucks enter and leave the port every year? So there is a question about how the port's operations and the diesel equipment, perhaps that is related to the port's activities, are going to be mitigated, how those environmental impacts are going to be mitigated and improved. Excellent questions. And let's see, a number of operational questions. I think I'll save those to the very end after we've covered the community slides, but an excellent discussion in there. And let me just make sure I've gone through the environmental comments in the chat feature. There's a comment that what the community needs is zero emission clean air, not just their fair share of advanced technology or funding, but really, to commit to a goal of zero emissions. There was a reference to the Port of LA and Long Beach, which made long-term net zero emission goals, and so there was a desire to see that here as well. Thank you. There's a question about, so there's a comment about some of the new mobile harbor cranes that are coming later this year, in addition to the existing mobile harbor cranes, and whether they're going to be electric powered or diesel. Has the port considered purchasing its own power plant or making its own power plant, either on its own land or leased land? Excellent question. And there's a question about the shipping companies. So not just the port, but the shipping companies. How can they be held accountable to transition to zero emissions as well? And they're present in our community, and certainly, especially prior to shore power, they contributed to the diesel particulate. So what else beyond the shore power in existence today could be done to make sure that they also are participants in reducing the environmental impacts? I'll put this in the environmental bucket for now. So there's a community desire to create a public trail along J Street that would connect adjacent Oxnard and Port Hueneme communities to the Ormond Beach and the wetlands. And there's a question of how could pedestrian safety at the crossing be ensured given port traffic on Hueneme Road? Excellent question, and definitely something that should be considered in the development plans. And let's see. So there's a couple of questions that can be addressed offline, I think specific. For instance, how do you select truck manufacturers to participate in pilot programs? There's questions about collaborating with the U.S. Weather Services located in Oxnard on Del Norte. So excellent question about what possible partnerships could be pursued to pursue the environmental goals. There's a comment about Silver Strand residents hearing noise pollution, loud noises, loading, unloading, especially during night operations. And so there's a question about, what to expect going forward. Is that going to continue? Will there be any changes? There's a desire for some quiet hours or something so that residents can sleep at night. And there's the final comment I'll include now, then we'll move on to the community pillar. There are a lot of well-known local agencies in Oxnard and Port Hueneme that contribute to pollution and that are not exactly doing any efforts to address or minimize their carbon footprint, like how the port is doing. Can the port find ways to work with those agencies? And there's also a recognition that there are other, this is actually a great transition into the next slide. So there's a recognition in this comment that there's homeless needs in the community. And is there any way that the port and maybe some of its infrastructure or equipment, this comment referenced containers, could there be a way that those could be sourced and donated to provide some relief or shelter for the homeless situation? And okay, one last question that came in. Again, it's a question about safety, proximity to beaches, beach access, and so just sort of the marrying between operations and residential uses. And there's a desire to make the beaches more accessible for local families and to see that the port, looks for ways to help with that goal as it continues its long-range planning and development over the years. So thank you. I think we're going to close this portion of the environmental section, but again, please, all comments are always welcome, either in the chat or in email. But I'm going to move now to the next of the 5 pillars. And before I introduce Miguel, I'll just describe that again, we've brought in what previously was a partnership-focused pillar to really encompass social equity, community, and partners. Now, based on the feedback, we thought of 4 possible categories of how to understand what this pillar might mean. It could mean a focus on social equity and justice. It could mean prioritizing communities. It could mean broadening the coalitions with regional, state, and national agencies. And then number 4, there was a recognition that the US Navy as a partner is really key. It's fundamental to continued success at the commercial port. So with that, I'd like to introduce Miguel Rodriguez, who's head of the community outreach at the Port of Hueneme, who's going to run through the findings from the online and community surveys that they performed in the prior month.
Thank you, Josh. And before that, I will start with a little bit of background on the Community Outreach Department at the Port. We actually started a year and 4 months ago as a response to community concerns regarding transparency and community partnerships, and mostly related to communication, equity, and environmental concerns. I am proud to say that the office was started because it was the right thing to do, given the climate crisis and its social impacts in the community surrounding the port. Through the creation of this department, we have been continuously involved in many fronts with a boots on the ground direct approach, so that we can meet the neighbors where they are located, so that we can continue bringing food distributions and relief during their times of need, but most importantly, so that we can get to know them and address these issues as partners and collaborators. So first, about the results, we asked, well, the part of the methodology, we used some college interns to administer the surveys, and we used SurveyMonkey to capture all the data efficiently and in one place. Additionally, in the spirit of transparency, we have taken the time to ask the questions that many have thought as controversial, and more specifically, that can really tell us the people's perception of the port and its environmental and sustainability work. So as you can see in these slide results, the first two questions were actually local questions that were asked only to people in South Oxnard and Hueneme, who responded that their top priorities for their port were communication and community involvement. This reflects back to people wanting to know more about our activities and our plans. Aside from the local questions, the rest of the survey takers were asked what their priorities were as related to the Port of Hueneme. As you can see, job creation, environmental responsibility, the rankings really at the top, right? And traffic congestion is third on that list, and pulling 2 whole points below was technology and innovation, as well as collaboration with the Navy. So all this feedback is going to be considered as the strategic plan gets formulated. Next slide, please. Josh? All right, awesome. And so here you can see that we asked the real tough questions, and we asked the controversial topics, right? And as you can see, out of the 502 responses, the port expansion was actually polling at 81%, which means that people on the ground, people in the community do see the port as a local job opportunity creator for also bringing more investment into South Oxnard. This is also addressing some of the perceptions that maybe people have, misperceptions around the port and its plans for potential growth. Aside from that, also the port has shown through the people's feedback that people feel comfortable about the safety and its operations, right? We are not having any fuel spills or any major accidents, or even, as you saw with the ship that got stuck, that brings us any type of visibility in that regard that's negative. 78% of the people consider the port an active member of the community, and that supports and gives back regionally. This is a great statistic as well. And the port supports local good jobs in the area and has a positive impact on the local economy. 78% of those respondents agreed to that. And aside from that, the port's perception of the port investing in local high schools and local schools ranks at 73%. And this is due to the port sponsoring kids art classes at the local elementary schools, through the global trade and logistics class at the high schools. And most recently, an investment in a broadband beam forwarding to families in the Rio Elementary School District. One of the trends that we are seeing, or actually one thing that I'd like to highlight, is that 76% of the respondents feel comfortable saying that they trust the port to do the right thing with their community and for their environment. No? So I think that speaks very highly of our perception out in the community. And, one of the trends, like we said, is that the relationship with a naval base is ranked lowest in this community service, but it's above 71%, which has been sort of a trend throughout the survey. Next slide, please. All right, in terms of performance, The port as an economic engine and job creator, having a positive impact in the community, it ranked the highest. Second was the outreach efforts. People are very receptive and open and like to participate. Behind that is also our environmental work. And last is what we are working on, and especially because of the reason of the creation of this particular office, right, which is that we want to address port issues and communicate with the community directly, openly, and transparently as we are doing now. Next slide, please. So finally, I want to highlight the fact that the port received 502 survey responses. Out of those, 210 were Spanish speakers. 292 were Spanish speakers, which is 58%. 210 were English speakers. 63% were from Oxnard, 28% from Port Hueneme, 9% were from other areas. And really the value in all of this is that we have very community specific data, right, from our neighbors, from the people that are directly impacted from the port's activities. And even yesterday, we received a request for further input, and we were able to open the survey so that we got 24 more responses, right? So the beauty of all this is that we are being open, we are being transparent, and we would like for you to tell us what it is we can do in order to improve, and also to partner with us so that we can continue doing some of this work. And we are in this together, and as the climate crisis approaches, we have to be fighting together. So with all that said, I'd like to pass it back to Josh, who's going to lead us into our strategic direction poll. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Miguel. Excellent, excellent survey. We have just a handful of polls, 3 polling questions we'd like to run, and then we do have a number of good comments. So please keep them coming in the chat function. And then while Donna, I think, why don't you go ahead and load question
Ready.
2 from the poll.
Okay, I'm launching it right now. Ranking on priorities.
Great. All right. So this is a ranking of priorities. Please select the topics that are important to you as they relate to the Port of Hueneme. A, community involvement and communication with the community. B, environmental responsibility. C, economic vitality and job creation. D, traffic congestion and transportation. E, technology and innovation. And F, collaboration with government, Navy, and businesses.
I'm seeing almost 53% now having voted, so I will allow a little more time for everyone to have a chance to vote. It's moving. Okay, 73% have voted. I will let maybe 10, 15 more seconds go. So we have majority having voted. Okay. Okay, I will go ahead and close the poll now, and I will share the results.
Great. Okay, so 73% indicated that community involvement and communication with the community was a top priority. Further, 67% indicated environmental responsibility, and 60% economic vitality and job creation. And those 3 were kind of at the top grouping, followed by the others at around 30% or so. So seems to indicate, again, what the port has selected as the 5 pillars: community, environment, and economic vitality and job creation. So I think that echoes a lot of the feedback that we've been receiving over the course of this project. So let's go on to the next poll.
There you go.
All right. What should be the focus for community engagement in the next 10 years? A, addressing equitable disparities and help create economic opportunities. Could be workforce training for local residents or students. Other. B, expand educational opportunities such as the Global Trade and Logistics Program or others for youth through partnership with institutions and universities. C, contribute to developing local benefits and programming. This could be the food distribution, school supplies, sponsorships, or banana festival tours or other. And D, capital improvements adjacent to the park. So some ideas here might be the pocket park, speed markers, or lighting improvements. Go ahead and select all that are important to you.
%60 have voted now, so we're waiting for a few more people to vote, please. So let's allow a little more time. Okay, about 5-10 more seconds. I think we're almost there. Okay, I will go ahead and close it now and share the results.
Okay, great. So 72%, the top choice, addressing equitable disparities and helping to create economic opportunities. Strong support for that goal. Then so the next three were kind of in line, although the 52% was developing local benefits and programming. More or less equal at 49% were the educational opportunities and partnerships. And then at 41%, still decent, strong support for capital improvements adjacent to the park, to the port. Thank you. Okay, I think we have one more poll question.
We do. We have one more. It's about reach.
Great. Where should the port focus its community outreach resources? Only in the areas closest to the port, Oxnard and Port Hueneme? Should it be further out, Ventura County or countywide? Should it be both?
Very active voting. Thank you. Almost 60% have already voted. Okay, another 10-15 seconds. Okay, it stopped moving now, so I think most have already voted. Okay, I will go ahead and close it, and thank you for your participation. Here we go.
Okay, so fully 55% of you said both. 36% said focus close in the areas. And just 8% focus only on Ventura County or countywide. So I think there's both strong support for recognizing the full reach of the port as part of the community, and it should focus its efforts broadly. But there was, also strong support to really make sure that its close proximity communities are addressed as well. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I will now turn over to some of the chat comments. So please keep them coming. I'll go back. I'll also do some of the infrastructure operational related ones as well. There's a good comment here about the quality of the jobs. So, there's a comment that not all the jobs associated with trade and logistics are the best. Some are minimum wage, some do not provide benefits, and some are non-union. So, in the port's focus on economic vitality and job creation, there is a desire to see that those jobs that are created are really, strong jobs to benefit the community. This comment specifically said they want to see good union living wage jobs with benefits. There was a comment thanking the port and Miguel Rodriguez, noting that through the food distribution program, they were able to get fresh fruits and vegetables into the hands of the farm workers on a consistent basis. And so there was an appreciation for that effort. There was a comment about the online surveys, which have been a great way to keep the community involved. And there was a question of whether those polls were targeted towards port workers as well, whether they were invited to participate. There was a question about the port's involvement in education. This person commented that she lived in Ox. And its involvement in the local schools, and perhaps it started after 2013, or only the ability to participate was limited to too few Oxnard residents. So I guess again, so it seems like there is a question about the details, but also whether the port can focus on expanding the extent of its educational programs. Okay, there's a comment here that again talked about the type of jobs, the longshore jobs. And there's a specific reference to the Pacific Maritime Association. There's a wish that they hired more full-time unionized longshore workers and not just depend on the part-time non-unionized longshore workers. And I think that comment also reflects the fact that the Pacific Maritime Association, or the PMA, is the employer of record for longshore union workers. And I think certainly as part of the port's 10-year plan, the goal will be to create an infrastructure and a port community that supports efficient and vibrant working waterfront. But that there are many different actors in that, including the Pacific Maritime Association. There's a question about communication, transparency, and outreach. How else would people know about the ideas and plans of the port? This person had some family members that didn't know about this meeting until she mentioned it, and they've been living here since 2002. So again, a desire to continue the outreach efforts to involve the community and make it aware of what's going on at the port, and also provide it with the space and the opportunity to have input. So there's a question about what other ways will the port work towards getting the word out to the community. The online poll was a good tool. What other ways in this 10-year plan will the port work to make sure that communication channel is open? There's a question about how the port engages with the immigrant or Mixteco speaking community in South Oxnard that many times doesn't have access to technologies like this. And I know that, the port, so from the port, from an organizational perspective, it's the plan recognizes that this is an important need, and that quality employees like Miguel need to be incorporated into the organization itself, that there is a need for having multilingual capabilities and access that's not just technology focused. And I do know that the survey itself was conducted as well in person, not just online. But that's a good reminder that the communication channels that the port should plan for need to be broader than just online. And then there was a question about how else could the community become aware of the programs or workshops available. I'm going to continue going through. Glad to see the port more involved in the community. Hope to see the community events like food distributions continue. There's a comment about the broader problem, not just at the port, but the broader problem of misclassification of workers as independent contractors. This commenter stated this is a big problem within the goods movement industry, perhaps beyond as well. And as the port plans expansion projects with partners or private logistics companies, how can we be sure that good jobs will be created from those projects? And I think that's it's a great observation and question for the port to grapple with as it pursues its vision down the line. There is acknowledgement of the ILWU members, the men and women of the ILWU, who are also community leaders and contribute to many local organizations, and definitely appreciation for their involvement. There is an acknowledgement that the port and its activities are very important for the community. There's a desire for many South Oxnard residents to be made aware of the port's plans. And there's a comment that it is important for the port to make that community, to bring that community into the planning process through this process as well as all future processes. And there was a reminder that there's a significant Mixteco speaking community. So there was a request to please continue the outreach, in particular to the Mixteco community via non-online forums. And I know that that is a priority for the port. Here's a great comment about partnering, because this is the partnering pillar as well, social equity, partnerships, and communities. Among the local benefits the port could provide would be partnering with the county, cities, and the Nature Conservancy to help improve safe public pedestrian and bicycle access to Ormond Beach and the wetlands. And then another local benefit would be partnering with those same entities to help restore the Ormond wetlands. So some particular groups that have been pointed out that would be good potential partners for the port to see if there are mutually beneficial projects to pursue, in particular for safe public pedestrian access and bicycle. Again, an acknowledgement of the food distribution program, which has been so helpful to many families in need. There's a reference to the Port of Hueneme's Facebook page as a great resource. This person commented that there are many Mixtecos on Facebook, and so that is a good platform. Even though it is online, it's a good platform for communication with that community. Let's see. I think there are a couple of comments that have acknowledged that they were residents in Hueneme for the 6 years, 2006 to 2012, went to Oxnard College, and that there was information from the port available on a regular basis. And I think that echoes some of the findings we had over the prior 12 months, one-on-one stakeholder outreach. The comment was generally that the port has made tremendous progress in the last 5 or so years and improving. And then as a follow-up, there is the reminder that, just because you've improved, you can't stop. You need to continue improving and working on your communication and partnership with the community. Let's see. There's another comment, concern about diesel, exposure to diesel. This is an environmental related one, but also tied into the health and well-being of the workers and the union members. And there's a desire for the port to hire more worker safety professionals. There's a reference to ergonomic concerns, but also chemical exposure. And I think either in the community, certainly in one or more of these 5 pillars, the well-being of the workers and the all involved participants in the supply chain around the port, their well-being is important and does need to be considered. I think certainly any project along that lines would definitely fall under one or more of those pillars. Further references to the beach access. So there's a comment that there are a number of Mixteco organizations, and so perhaps they could be engaged as partners to help in the outreach to the broader community members, the broader members of the Mixteco community. Here's a commentator who said that they are an educational partner who has been working with the port and can say that the port has been very involved in STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math for K through 12, college and university students. And there's a desire to, there's an excitement about keeping that engagement up and continuing it. There was a question about how can the port prioritize helping develop green spaces in South Oxnard. So I think the idea would be some off-terminal assistance in looking at developing green spaces. There is some discussion in the chat room about access to Ormond Beach. So I think there's a desire to look more particularly about the specifics, the parking lot, the quality of the paving in the parking lot, and just overall beach access. Make sure it's safe and accessible. There is an expression of thanks for the food distributions, the opportunity to volunteer for both old and young members of the community, and internships being offered to the youth and the adolescents. This is a longtime Hueneme resident who is very proud of the work that Miguel Rodriguez and the port is doing. And so I think, again, it's great to hear those comments. And I know that the port is very appreciative. And from a strategic plan focus, the emphasis, I think, probably is that the organization is hearing just how important it is to you that there are quality people like Miguel and others at the port, and so to continue to prioritize the quality of the internal organization at the Port of Hueneme. And okay, so we do have time to open up the floor to any attendee who would like to do their comment verbally instead of by chat. We just ask that you try and limit your time to 2 minutes or less, just so that we have enough room, time for everyone. And I'm gonna open that up to Donna to open up anyone, I guess just raise your hand to identify that you would like a moment to pose a question or comment.
Yes, thank you. So all attendees, if you would like to make a comment, just through the raise hand option on Zoom on the bottom of your screen, I will be able to see you and make you able to talk so everybody else can hear you. Okay, I'm already seeing some. I will allow for 2 minutes for each of the speakers. Hopefully we have a few of you that would like to talk. And I just want to thank everyone for all of the questions that were sent through the chat that Josh just went through. We will record all of them and we'll answer the questions and we'll email all of the attendees the answers to those questions. So we really appreciate this. I will make sure we save this chat and we address all of them. So I will go ahead and start opening up the floor. First one, I have Lorenzo Moraza, then I have Raudel Flores, Arthur Valenzuela, and Nidia Bello so far. So I will start with Lorenzo. Okay, Lorenzo, I believe we're able to hear you now. If you can unmute yourself, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
My name is Lorenzo Moraza. I'm a resident of Santa Paula. And I would like to thank the port, specifically Miguel Rodriguez, for reaching out and allowing me and others here in
Oops.
particular process. It's important for us here in Santa Paula to have an opportunity to express our interest. We are very interested in having more of our residents be gainfully employed at the port. And more importantly, the port has been doing a very good job of reaching out to our students at middle school and high school and giving them opportunities to really learn more about what the port is doing. And I really would like to emphasize the great work that Miguel through the port has been doing in feeding the frontline workers. So thank you in general, once again, for the opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you very much. Okay, let me take a look and who is next. 1 second. Okay, Raudel Flores, I will go ahead and ask you to unmute yourself, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good evening.
Perfect. Good evening. Hi, just as a long-term resident of Port Hueneme, just want to really thank the port and Miguel Rodriguez for all the work that they have done during the pandemic as far as food distribution, not only in Port Hueneme, but countywide. It's been really amazing to see how these individuals really appreciate what's been done and offered by the port. And I just want to thank them. And again, not only for what they're offering as far as what the port is doing, but these young individuals and community members, seeing people come together and help out each other. It's just been amazing to see everybody come together. And I think it's just a great learning experience for everybody who's participating, as far as just the importance of giving back when you can and working together to make a difference and an impact. And thanks to the port and Miguel, I think that that's been something that's also been given to the community as far as just hope and, just the motivation to keep going. So thank you guys, keep it going. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Okay, and next we have Arthur Valenzuela. Following Arthur, we have Nidia Bello and Miriam Cervantes, as well as Lucia Marquez and Shannon Nicolaisen. I will go ahead and allow Arthur to speak. Arthur, you're able to also start your camera for all of the ones that I'm allowing to speak. You're able to do so if you wish as well. Arthur, we should be able to hear you now.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hi there. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
1 second. Yeah, so I want to say thank you all very much for putting this together. I'm a third generation worker at the port. Both my grandfather and father have been unionized LWU members. I'm a casual myself, 5 years in, hopefully another 5 to 7 years till I get into the union myself. Very grateful for all the opportunity that the port has provided for my family and several other families for economic mobility. Moving forward on this, though, I would like to ask that the port require more of the shipping companies that remain at Port Hueneme, like Ports America, Series, and Pac Railroad, to transition to more environmental friendly worker equipment. A lot of the stuff there is still diesel ran, and as a worker, we breathe that in regularly, not just the particles that come throughout the community. We get it firsthand. And also, I guess in the future, I would like to ask that this outreach would go to like the ILWU and the Teamsters and other workers that take place at the port. But thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your comments, Arthur. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, and next, let me see. It was Nidia Bello. Nidia, I will go ahead and allow you here to unmute yourself. We should be able to hear you now. Can you hear us? Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Nidia. I'm a community organizer and also a resident of South Oxnard. I would, just like to start out by saying that I think could webinar in terms of engaging the Mixteco Spanish-speaking immigrant community. We have, we have developed this vision for a healthy South Oxnard that includes full transparency on planned projects from the, future port development. And so I think this is a good step. And in addition, we also mentioned a commitment to zero emission, and we think that if ports like LA and Long Beach can do it, then port like Port Hueneme should be also able to do that. Set a standard. Also, we think that when it comes to environmental justice, this is a community that has been impacted a lot. And so, one of the ways that our neighborhood could be supported is through developing these green spaces that we have talked about. We've mentioned the Ormond Beach wetlands. It's a treasure that we have and that we should all have access to. Even developing like the J Street drain, right, to have more access and more equity for our communities. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Let me see who's next. One moment. Next, we have Miriam Cervantes. Okay, Miriam. You should be able to hear us now. Hello.
Buenas tardes, ¿sí me escuchan?
Sí.
Voy a hablar español. Primero quiero agradecer por ser inclusivos y darnos el espacio de la traducción. Quiero agradecer por informarnos como comunidad. Yo pertenezco a una organización de padres que entrenamos o apoyamos a otros padres para que ayuden a sus hijos a tener mayor éxito en la escuela.
Lucia, may I ask that you pause so the translator is able to translate live after you speak?
Puedes pausar poquito para que la intérprete pueda ponerse a tiempo con tus comentarios.
Sí, gracias.
Miguel, can you please help with that live translation? Thank you.
Okay, so Miriam, Miriam is one of our is a community participant. She belongs to a group that is geared that was formed that creating opportunities for parents to get involved in education. ¿Puedes seguirle, Miriam?
Sí, el comentario que tengo es específicamente acerca de la limpieza de la ciudad del puerto de Hueneme.
The commentary I have is specifically about the cleanliness of
Como estamos hablando, como están hablando, es muy importante el medio ambiente y mantener nuestras áreas libres de tóxicos. Creo que uno de los más importantes son los parques, porque es donde nosotros como comunidad, nuestros hijos es donde vamos a recrearnos, y es importante que los parques estén bien cuidados. Yo he visto por estos últimos meses cómo tanto la ciudad de Oxnard como la ciudad del puerto de Hueneme, muchos parques están muy descuidados. Tienen los muebles nuevos, el playground está todo muy nuevo, pero lo que es la limpieza, tanto del zacate, los baños, hay una preocupación muy grande por tantas personas que viven en la calle y están viviendo en los parques.
about people that live in the parks.
Nos da mucha
And
preocupación
that
como familia porque no
worries
tenemos
us very
la
much
seguridad de llevar a
because
nuestros
we don't
hijos a
have
los
the
parques,
safety to take our children to the
para
parks.
que... Claro que sí.
Okay, what she's saying is that it's great that we're having this conversation around toxic environments, and specifically, she wants to focus on park access and park cleanliness because she has seen an increase in homelessness and trash happening, being dumped in Oxnard parks and Port Hueneme parks, and so she wants to bring this up as a priority because she sees that a lot of the parks have new playground structures, but they are surrounded by trash. Sí, ¿puede conseguir seguir, Miriam, por favor?
Sí, yo sé que como comunidad, pues tenemos que unirnos para que nos escuchen. Por eso estoy aquí para alzar la voz por todas esas personas, esas familias que no tienen la oportunidad de entrar a estos webinars y darse cuenta de lo que está pasando. Yo especialmente he visto cómo en la ciudad de Ventura, en áreas donde hay más comunidad involucrada, los parques están muy bien, específicamente, y en esta ciudad y en el puerto de Hueneme, desafortunadamente no es así. Tristemente, donde están poniendo la vacuna. Sí.
Okay, and she says that she's very happy that she's able to be the voice for families that may not be able to get involved in webinars like these, but also she has noticed that in other communities like in Ventura where where people are more involved, that things are better. ¿Puedes seguir, por favor?
Y pues espero que tomen acción o que haya aquí personas que realmente estén comprometidas con la comunidad y puedan hacer algo para nuestra comunidad, para nuestras familias, para que tengamos nosotros más seguridad de llevar a nuestros hijos, tanto en un ambiente social bueno, refiriéndome a los muchos homeless que hay en los parques, como en la limpieza.
And she hopes that there are people here that are able to help with some of these situations so that people and families can feel more comfortable in taking their children to the parks and also, getting more people involved in the cleanliness. Muchas gracias, Miriam.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the comments. Thank you. Next, let me see. I believe we have Lucia Marquez. Lucia, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes, wonderful.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lucia Marquez, and I'm a policy advocate with CAUSE, a community organization that focuses on environmental justice throughout Ventura County and Santa Barbara County. But a lot of our environmental justice work has been focused in Oxnard, and I appreciated that there was a big focus on environmental impacts and environmental justice throughout the and as an organization that has really done a lot of work around environmental justice in the community, what is really important to us is that we're looking at the cumulative impacts, the long-term impacts around everything that is impacting our community. If you look at South Oxnard, it's burdened by more pollution than 89% of other census tracts across the state. And that's because in South Oxnard, we have to realize that this community is impacted by, the cargo ships and trucks and all the technology within the port, but also coastal power plants and pesticides and a Superfund site. And so when we're trying to set these goals and visions for cleaning up our environment within the port, we hope that you take into consideration the cumulative impacts of everything that's impacting the community, not just what's within the borders of the port. So thank you so much, and I hope you take that into consideration within the draft of your strategic plan.
Thank you, Lucia. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Okay, next we have 7 more raised hands. Next is Shannon. Sorry, I can't see the last name from where. Nicolaisen. Shannon, you should be able to hear us now. Hello?
I believe Shannon is still on mute. So Shannon, you should be able to unmute yourself, and we should be able to hear you as soon as you do that.
There we go.
Great, we hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make a comment that there were very few organizations that spent their time and money during the pandemic, but the port, put in their resources and their time and were really there for everybody during that time of the pandemic. And Miguel Rodriguez, he spent all his time. He was so busy, and every time I talked to him, he was always busy. I don't think this guy sleeps. So, I've been out to some of the food shares, and I've helped volunteer during the food shares, and this guy is always sweating. I mean, he is a hard worker. And I just want to thank, everybody that's involved in that. I'm an Oxnard resident, obviously. I'm not involved formally with anything, but yeah, I just wanted to make that comment that the port was really, really there. So it's appreciated. That's it.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Okay, next we have Saul Medina. Saul, give me a second. I'll be able to change the settings here. We should be able to see and hear you if you'd like. Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Well, I want to thank the port for giving me this opportunity to speak. I want to thank Miguel for organizing the vaccines for the longshoremen and making sure that they were in line to get the vaccines just like everybody else. I think that was very commendable to do as well. I'm also, a former Oxnard planning commissioner that worked on the 2020 plan and the 2030 plan. And from my recollection of those plans, there's light industrial to be built around, I believe, Hueneme Road and also Pleasant Valley Road that may contribute to the expansion of the port utilization of the light industrial. I'm also very impressed with the fact of the food distribution as well as projects for parks in the area to be built. So there was another development, the South Shore, that went through the environmental process in the planning stages. And I think that would have been a very good project because it would have built housing as well as industrial. But I like the fact that the port of Hueneme has gone green, has gotten awards for their efforts to go green as well. And I hope that they continue to do that in the next 10 years to make sure that the environmental impact is reduced. I'm aware of Almond Beach getting another $1 million. Hopefully they can improve the access to it as well. But some of the concerns about the parks not being clean is mostly a local issue, such as City Council of Oxnard and Port Hueneme, and making sure that some of the funds are not just poured into pensions of police and fire, but is also that their ability to balance their budgets and make sure that the priorities of the residents are being heard. So I appreciate the port for providing this platform in order to get those issues across. And hopefully some of those council members can hear what the residents are saying. So I greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments, Saul. We appreciate it. We have 5 more attendees that would like to talk. We would like to make some final remarks. So about 7:55, we should have enough time for each of you to be able to speak for 2 minutes. So next is Odette Moore, and then we have R. Santiago, Zulette Lucero, Jose Perez, and Richard Fine. Okay. Odette, you should be able to speak now.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Odette. I'm here with Cause, and I was raised and currently live in South Oxnard. Thank you for providing this space for our community, but do wish to see a bit more improvement with transparency, green space availability, and a commitment to zero emissions. I appreciate once again the efforts, but it's clearly not enough since a lot of my neighborhood did not know about this event. And as mentioned by more attendees, South Oxnard is home to a large Spanish-speaking and Mixteco-speaking only residents. So transparency and accessibility with our community is largely important. And as for green space availability and the commitment for zero emissions, I believe that my family and neighbors deserve to walk to Ormond Beach and breathe clean air. Again, I realize that it takes time to get to the goal, but would like to see that be the goal. So not only a reduction and for 85%, but a commitment to zero emissions and green space availability. I think it was mentioned in the beginning about port success being our success, but I truly think that in order for the port success to be our success, we need to have those addressed, the transparency, commitment to zero emissions, and green space availability, and that's speaking about Ormond Beach. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, next is R. Santiago. Hello, can you hear us? Hello? Hello? We may have trouble connecting with him.
Yeah, well, perhaps
hello?
we move on to the next participant,
Yes.
and if our Santiago can.
Yes, I
come back
will. I will let one more participant be able to speak. Just give me 1 second, and then close up.
While you're doing that, Donette, there were a couple operational chat questions I failed to mention earlier. I apologize. One is coming up from Richard Fine, who has his hand raised, who suggested that the port incorporate the Channel Islands Harbor, which is in the Oxnard Harbor District. So I just wanted to mention that that was one of two other questions that we'll cover. I'll make sure to come back and cover that before we close at the hour.
Thank you, Josh. Now it's time for Zulette Lucero, and that would be the last comment of the night as we're coming up here on 8 o'clock, and we have some closing comments. Thank you, everyone, for all of your participation. This has been amazing. Zulette, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Oh, hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zulette. I'm a community organizer in Oxnard, and as I mentioned in the chat, I speak and talk with folks in the community every day. And people for a long time have mentioned how the beaches are not accessible, or they do not go to the beach because it doesn't look like a tourist beach or doesn't look like the beaches in Ventura and Santa Barbara. So I'm here just to ask to please ensure that 34 acres at the end of the Saviors and Hueneme Road is used for public good, no private industry, due to its importance as a last only industrialized parcel of the land connecting South Oxnard neighborhoods to the Ormond Beach, wetlands restoration, and the ecological importance of this habit and the life that calls it home. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I think I will squeeze it at least three more speakers, so I appreciate everybody's patience. Give me 1 second. There is so much interest, and I appreciate that you want to make comments. So we will make sure that we get as many of you as we can. Just 1 second. Okay. I believe there was an attendee that wanted to speak, and Miguel has advised that he is able to call in somehow. I tried to have him call in earlier, but we couldn't hear him. Miguel?
Yeah, so here he is.
Okay, thank you.
Roberto, ya estás listo para hablar, ya te están escuchando. Disculpa que tuvimos las fallas con el audio del Zoom, pero sí, puedes empezar.
Sí, está bien, pues voy a hablar mixteco.
Ok, aquí tenemos el traductor de mixteco. Si puedes hablar poquito, déjalo y él va a traducir lo que tú vas a decir, ¿ok?
Sí,
okay.
Ok, gracias. Me digo Roberto, me digo Roberto Santiago, ya me voy a toba. A ver, la cuarta sabina, Puerto Hueneme, ya chinchi, buena comunidad, buena estado, no, de buena, de buena divina, de año.
Mi nombre es Roberto, soy de Oaxaca y le doy las gracias al puerto por todo el apoyo que me están dando o nos están dando a la comunidad en estos tiempos tan difíciles.
Está bien, de buena, se ha hecho una chinchena, de buena comunidad, ya, chinga, ya, pandemia, ya, bichira. Señor, se merece crédito, saben, se invitan ahí, saben, buena, se invitan junta, no con el callo.
Gracias a todos los trabajadores del puerto, a todas las personas que están haciendo esto posible, y gracias también por incluir a la comunidad indígena en estas juntas. Y también dar las gracias otra vez pues por la pandemia, ¿verdad? Por los tiempos difíciles que estamos viviendo, que el puerto nos ha dado un poquito de alivio, ¿verdad? Y gracias por eso, y gracias por todo el trabajo que están haciendo.
Miguel, do you mind translating, please?
Gracias, Roberto. Yeah, so Roberto says that he is from Oaxaca, and that he is very grateful for the help that the port has given and the relief for the Mixteco community during this pandemic. and he's very pleased with the work that the port is doing and feels like the port doesn't get enough credit.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the comment. I will, I think next we have Jose Perez and Richard Fine, and that should be it. For tonight, Jose, I will go ahead and allow you to speak now. You should be able to hear us.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah. So just wanted to say thank you guys for reaching out and appreciate for putting up this platform, talking to the community and everything. I just wanted to mention if there is a way that you guys can make this information available to the public, and if so, where at. Kind of data driven, so I like to look at data and pretty much look at the information that's putting in front of us. So if there's like a website or PDF that's available, we would very much appreciate it.
Yes, we will. We'll make it available. Absolutely. Thank you for that comment.
And would that be Port Hueneme website or?
We could do so, and we also can post it on social media, so there's a link to it. So you can load it or
great.
view it. Yes.
All right, great. Thank you.
Or we could email it to all attendees after the meeting with the questions being answered as well. It will be multiple ways.
Very great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next we have Richard Fine. Just 1 second. Okay, Richard, we should be able to hear you now. Hello? Richard? I will ask you to unmute yourself, please.
There we go.
There you go. Hello, good evening.
Good evening. You let me start the video?
It's up to you, however you'd like.
Okay, I'm the one that raised the issue with respect to taking over the Channel Islands port. And basically, I'm starting with the fact that the management of the harbor has been so good in dealing with the harbor, keeping it in prosperity and being able to contribute to the community. And on the other side of it, for those of you that have been following what's happened to the Channel Islands harbor and the problems that we're having with the county running it, that I felt it would be a very good idea, since the Channel Islands harbor is within the Oxnard Harbor District, that the harbor take over the Channel Islands harbor and run it under the auspices of the harbor and the elected harbor commissioners. I think that that would be an excellent idea. I think that the way that the harbor is, that the Port Hueneme harbor is operating at the present time, and the way that it contributes to the community and the transparency that it has and the plan that it has, it would be beneficial to both the Oxnard Harbor District and all the people in Ventura County to have the Channel Islands harbor run under the Oxnard Harbor District. As you know, the Channel Islands harbor has approximately, I believe, 3,000 slips in it. It has a certain amount of rentals in it. And since the Oxnard Harbor District is running rentals at the present time, and it has is leasing out part of its harbor, to other people, the concepts are identical. And I don't think it would cause any major problem to integrate the Channel Islands harbor into this, because the way the Channel Islands harbor is set up, it has lessees that then release to individuals. And it has a channel in it that needs to be deepened. It has all the same problems, except for the loading and unloading of large commercial vessels. And as I say, and I'll finish it with saying, I think that to have the Channel Islands harbor as part of the Oxnard Harbor District would benefit the community. The transparency would be wonderful. There would be direct access to the commissioners through the voting process, which means that we will not have to go through the Ventura Harbor commissioners. And with everything that's happening in Ventura, and you don't have to have the money siphoned off into Ventura and their problems as to what they may be doing. Whereas here, the money would go right into the district and a direct benefit to the people. And once again, I thank you for everything that you're doing. I'm a resident of Port Hueneme now, and for the last number of years, I've been a resident of Oxnard Shores. So I've been involved on both sides of it. And I just can't compliment you enough on the terrific job that you're doing in running the harbor. When I lived in Los Angeles and I was operating as an attorney, I brought the case that really stopped harbors from taking money that should have gone into them and putting it in other places. So I can really appreciate the fiscal responsibility of the Port Hueneme Harbor and how it's operating. And that's why I came up with this idea. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Okay, with that, we appreciate all of the attendees' comments. Thank you for going live with us. This was really great. And I will turn it over back to Josh and Commissioner Hodge.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Donna. I just would like to finish on this slide about the next steps, and again, and provide Donna and Miguel's email address, because their email is always open for comments and questions. This is not the end of the process, but this is a continuum. And so I want to thank you. And before the port thanks you, I'd like to thank the translators, the interpreters, who have done just tremendous work. I've had to remember to slow down, but I know that they've been doing a great job. So thank you very much. And now I believe we'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Hodge to have the closing remarks.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Fantastic comments, questions. It was hard to read them all and want to comment, but we really want to make sure that our specialists get back to you. You know, what Giles does on the environmental side is really impressive. And to understand what we have committed to when it comes to zero emissions, to community air standards, it's just too hard to do in a simple paragraph. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this whole thing, we're going to put it on our website so anyone can view it. And we're also going to email everyone that participated today in this conversation. We're going to email them the answers to all of the questions that were given tonight. So hopefully that'll help you move forward with a better understanding of what we do. And I also want to welcome you to always participate in our meetings. For the third Monday of every month, you can zoom in and watch what we do every single month. We're very open and transparent about how we participate with the community. You have. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Hope to see you tomorrow night again doing this, because this is our port and we're going to make this a really fantastic place for the future. So thank you very much.
Okay. I think with that, we adjourn. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your participation and look forward to continued collaboration and partnership.
Thank you very much, everyone. Great to see you tonight.
Good
Thank
night.
you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Martha. Thank you, Jorge. We appreciate you. See you soon. Bye-bye.